Reboot your credit card with Apple Card. It gives you unlimited daily cash back that can earn 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a savings account. A high-yield, low-effort way to grow your money with no fees. Apply for Apple Card now in the Wallet app on iPhone to start earning and growing your daily cash with savings today. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners, subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA. Member FDIC. Terms apply.
Before we talk about that transition piece, talk about how you got into section hiking, and was it just casually? And because now you're aggressively section hiking. You've got almost, you just told me before we went live, you've got almost half the trail done. So talk about your section hiking life, when that started, and why you are maybe aggressively section hiking now.
It's like a slippery slope. I live in Southern Maryland. It takes me about 2 hours and a little. I can get anywhere in Shenandoah National Park. I can get to most of Maryland. I can get West Virginia and pretty far into Virginia. And it's only a couple hour drive. It's easy. So there was a giant wad of trail where I could just casually go out for a day or a weekend, or, I'm waterfall hopping in Shenandoah, and it's like, oh, let me hike, from this parking lot to that parking lot. I'll pick up 2 miles of trail. And I just started tracking them on a spreadsheet. And the more I started tracking them, the more they looked like they were adding up to something. So I'm like, okay, when I go back, I'll just do something different instead of doing the same thing over and over again. And the more different trails I hiked, actually it's all the AT, but the more different parts of it I hiked, the more I started liking it more and more. And I don't know how long it took, but somewhere along the line, I felt compelled to get things done. Like I got Maryland done, and then I got West Virginia done, and Virginia took forever. That was painful. I got Pennsylvania done before I got Virginia done. Then all with different section hikers and friends along the way, kind of hiking with me. It's been a lot of fun. Where was I going with that? Now it's troublesome because I'm up in Connecticut and down in Tennessee. It takes me like 6 or 7 hours to get to where I've left off. And where it used to be worth it to go for a day and get a few miles. Now I do it. I still do it, but sometimes it's just not worth driving 7 hours to hike 5 miles and then drive 7 hours back. Done it a couple times because I really wanted to finish something. And that's all the time I had. But now, where I used to not use shuttles, now I do a lot of shuttling. I coordinate with people before I go to leave my car somewhere, and then I get driven to a different trailhead and I hike back to the car. Previously, all my hikes were in and outs. They were just little yo-yos. So maybe 25 to 30% of the trail I've already done like 2 or 3 times because it's all yo-yos.
Yeah, you're really, and I put up this comment, I think I said aggressive section hiking. And when I was aggressively section hiking, our stories sound very familiar. I always broke my hike down into a third, and a third. So the first third, I was like, oh, I love it. I just want to be on the trail. And then the second third was, oh, I think I'm doing something here. These miles are starting to add up. And I will admit it publicly. I had a spreadsheet. I had multiple spreadsheets. Yeah, because when you're section hiking, you have to keep up with it. And then I started and I got really bad. So I had a spreadsheet for the main hike, the one section hike to complete the entire line. And then I had a sheet of, okay, I've done Georgia this many times. I've done the Smokies this many times. Yep. I've done, yeah. So
same thing.
Yeah. But the last third of my hike was very aggressive because I became to the point where I want to get this done. And are you to that point with your section hike because it is getting harder? So you have to be more strategic.
With Virginia, I was like that because I got frustrated. It was just taking so long to get Virginia done. And to get all the way down to Damascus, every time I drove it, it was 5 hours. So I hooked up with a couple people and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do, 100 miles and just start doing it. So last summer, I did a giant section. I did a lot of hostel hopping, but it was south of Angel's Rest, all of that down to Damascus. I just relentlessly kept hiking and hiking and hiking until it got done. And early on, as section hikers, we can do this. We can pick good days to hike and not hike in the rain if we don't want to. And as I started getting closer to thinking maybe I'm going to do a through hike, I said, well, okay, we're going to do that. Let's see how we like hiking in the rain. I don't think anybody likes hiking in the rain, but at least I know I can tolerate it because I'll just go out on purpose and hike in the rain.
Yeah.
Get some miles done.
And as you go now and you're planning, because you have to drive, X amount of hours north, you have to drive X amount of hours, south, because I think you still have some miles in North Carolina to complete as your section hike. You can't predict the weather anymore. And that's part of, section hiking. So I'm trying to add up in my brain how many times I went to New Hampshire and Maine. I think it's 3 or 4. I think when I finally finished, it was 4 times to travel up north, whether by spend 2 days in a vehicle going up north, flying. I've flown up there and I've flown home. And that was a trip in 2015. So I flew home from Vermont, took a train, got all this stuff, and flew back and got back on the trail. And that was a mistake. So you learn, you have to factor travel in as well. Are you finding that? Because you're X amount of hours in the car.
Yeah, it's so many hours in the car and then so many hours to hike. I hike at about 2 miles an hour, so I can use the Far-Own app or Gut Hook or whatever they call it now. Actually, I use a lot of White Blaze Guide. I use that a lot too, just to figure out exactly how far I'm going to go and how fast I think I can do it. So I have enough time to actually get back so I can be at work on Monday or Tuesday or whenever work happens to start. The last hike I did, I drove up to Connecticut after work. So I got off at like 5, drove 6 hours up there. It's 11 at night when I get to the trailhead. And I was clever where I picked a trailhead that was like 4/10 of a mile from the shelter. So I hiked in 4/10 of a mile with a headlamp, dropped the tent. And I started hiking the next day on Saturday and I pushed through and did it that way. But that took some planning to make sure I didn't end up hiking all night inadvertently in the rain.
Yeah, section hiking is definitely a different mindset.
Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.